to English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South, and I am Sweeney Gray. Hurricane Florence weakened to a Category 2 storm overnight. It's expected to maintain that strength when it makes landfall. With maximum sustained winds of 177 kilometers per hour, it's still a powerhouse that will batter the Carolinas coast. Meteorologists believe that the hurricane will stall and meander near the coast from Thursday night until Saturday. That could mean torrential rain, high coast, coastal erosion and storm surges for days.
This monster of a storm is not one to ride out. When you're looking at a storm surge of this magnitude, where the National Weather Service has said that the damage is going to be unbelievable and that they cannot emphasize it enough, we know that that's a message that we should listen to.
Winds are already starting to pick up in North Carolina. Businesses are boarded up. Many residents have heeded evacuation calls.
First things first.
Well, this is about the worst one for me. It'd be close. I've been through a Cat 1 before.
Been here since '84 and living downtown in an old house that's seen a lot, so no.
Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Isaac also continues to weaken, but it's not an all clear though. Tropical storm winds are expected to start hitting the Lesser Antilles later this afternoon into tomorrow. There are tropical storm warnings for Martinique, Guadeloupe and Dominica. Still not taking any chances after last year's Hurricane Maria, Dominica has issued an island-wide state of emergency until noon on Friday. A curfew will be in effect for the duration.
You don't necessarily take the decision to declare a state of emergency or curfew because you think that there may be some security risk to the country per se. Sometimes these are taken to ensure that there is a greater level of control of the space to allow the essential services to carry the duties, and fundamentally to protect people from themselves.
Puerto Rico is not expected to take a direct hit from Tropical Storm Isaac. However, San Juan Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz said that the territory is in a weakened state and isn't fully prepared.
Are we ready? Look, nobody's ready for a Hurricane 5 or a Hurricane 4. And we are weakened right now, and we're much in control than we were last year. But certainly when you have 3,000 tarps or roofs, these people are now not going to be able to withstand even a Hurricane Category 1 in their homes. So there's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of shelters and so forth. Are we completely ready? No. We would be lying if we said we are ready, and neither is the central government completely ready.
The mayor has criticized President Donald Trump for remarks he made about last year's hurricane. Trump had said his administration's response to Hurricane Maria was an unsung success. Mayor Cruz told Reuters that Trump does not get it, and unfortunately, people died because of that. An estimated 3,000 people died in Puerto Rico as a result of the storm, which knocked out power to all 3.4 million residents.
The world has seen, and the majority of the American people have seen how neglectful he was towards the people of Puerto Rico. If he calls a success or an unsung success 3,000 people dying on his watch, definitely he doesn't know what success is.
St. Lucia's opposition leader is preparing a motion of no confidence against Prime Minister Alan Chastanet. Chastanet has been facing public scrutiny for privatizing a public hospital. Opposition leader Philip Pear is also accusing the Prime Minister of corruption and of targeting organizations which oppose him. Pear led an anti-government protest through the streets of Castries over the weekend.
Very soon, I will be going to Parliament to move a vote of no confidence in the government of Alan Chastanet. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? Will you join us when we move in the vote of no confidence? Do you agree with that? Do you agree that Chastity must go? So say after me, Chastity must go. Chastity must go.
Chastane's United Workers' Party is calling the vote political posturing, but they're not hiding from the motion either, saying it will be embarrassingly defeated whenever it is submitted.
PM made the announcement as the final speaker.
Trinidad and Tobago could finally be adopting the Caribbean Court of Justice as its final court of appeal. Even though the CCJ's headquarters is based in Trinidad, the country has long avoided even debating its adoption. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says that will change next year. And we're joined live on the line now by Professor Rose-Marie Belle Antoine. She is the Dean of the Faculty of Law of Uwi-St. Augustine, and she's also the chair of the CARICOM Marijuana Commission. Professor Antoine, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
So, Grenada and Antigua and Barbuda are holding referendums on the CCJ on the same day. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I have never been so much in favor of referenda for these issues because they tend to be politicized, which is what we saw when they held the previous ones, but hopefully this time it will be looking at the issues themselves and get a more positive outcome.
And Trinidad and Tobago is notorious for not even wanting to debate the CCJ. Why has that been, and how optimistic are you that the country will adopt the CCJ as its final appellate court?
Well, we've been here before. I wouldn't say we've not wanted to debate. If you recall, some years ago, just before the CCJ was actually launched, the then administration had in fact indicated that they were in favor of it, and then there was a right about or wrong about turn. So that discussion has come up. But of course, I welcome the statement from Prime Minister Rowley. It is a very progressive and positive statement, and in keeping with what the University of the West Indies has always advocated, that we need to have a final appellate court in the region and not as far away in an alienating Privy Council in Britain.
And really quickly, as the Dean of Law, as a legal academic based in Trinidad and Tobago, how have your colleagues been discussing this particular situation?
Well, this has been a favorite topic for many, many years at the Faculty of Law. We have been advocates for a local appellate court. We've written books on this subject. We've had many debates. I myself had a symposium a couple of years ago, very successful symposium, where we had persons from Australia, India, and so on, Canada, who went through the same growing pains with regard to the Privy Council. And generally, the UE has been in favor of the CCJ.
And let's switch gears a little bit. Let's discuss the decriminalization of marijuana. After your presentation at the CARICOM heads meeting in July, the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, was quoted as saying legalization is not a priority and that the science was still out. He has now said that he will begin, that Trinidad and Tobago will begin discussing legislation next year. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, again, better late than never, but I have to probably thank MP Hines, because I had seen him after that statement at a CCJ symposium, ironically enough, and I mentioned to him that perhaps the Prime Minister should have the opportunity to read the report, because I know you're busy sometimes as a Prime Minister, and I urged them to read it because the issues were indeed issues of priority for the country, including in relation to crime and social justice. And this is from then that we began some movement and some turnaround. So they did read the report. He asked me to send it to him personally. I did so. It is clear from what the Prime Minister said, and although he quoted some of what he said in that report, my view, for example, has been that social justice is the most compelling issue. And I don't think that those issues could ever be priority in any country and with any government. So I very much welcome the statement and the changed approach, and I am one of those. I don't hold it against him that he may have gone in the wrong direction before. He's corrected himself, and I'm very happy and looking forward to some positive movement.
Now, CARICOM was very forward-thinking in creating a marijuana commission to investigate the options of decriminalization. How receptive have the other islands been to decriminalization?
Very, very receptive. In fact, some of them got impatient with us. They were waiting on us and that report. It took a while. We had to get the funding and so forth to do the consultations. And while we were in the middle of it, a couple of countries, Belize and Antigua, went ahead and made some reform, but we did have the opportunity to visit them at least, and we had public consultations there, although the report was not out. So we see that this was an excellent move on CARICOM's part, and the process itself has galvanized the issue. And not just, we don't pretend that we are the first or the only ones talking about it. There have been many people, as you know, even Trinidad, there was a group, but they were being told, wait on the CARICOM report because they wanted a, I would say, scientific sort of analysis and a comprehensive analysis. And now that is there. And so it gives the whole issue legitimacy and credibility, and it gives fuel and support to the many, many people, including the Rastafarian community, because they have been at the forefront. To make some positive moves in this direction.
And lastly, Professor Antoine, what comes next for the CARICOM Marijuana Commission? Is there some sort of move to have like a generalized plan for how legislation or decriminalization will be shaped throughout the region, the Caribbean community?
That's a great question. What we said in the report, and the report is now available online at the CARICOM website, the full report, we gave 3 options because we recognized that different countries were in different stages of development in regard to this issue. So a country like Jamaica or even Antigua that have already gone some way, they are most likely willing to go the full length with full legalization. Others may want to get a little more cautious in how they approach it. In terms, they may just go with the decriminalization. So we gave different options, and so we expect not to have harmonization across the board with identical laws, but at the very minimum, and this is what the report says, at minimum, persons should not be criminalized these long periods in jail for using marijuana. That should be the minimum in terms of what we expect in the region, and I think there's a large consensus. And there's also quite a bit of consensus in relation to use for health purposes. So I think those are the 2 basic points of consensus.
Thank you so much for that. We've been speaking to the Dean of the Faculty of Law in St. Augustine, the University of the West Indies, Professor Rose-Marie Belle Antoine. We're going to take a short break now, but we'll have more news in a minute.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on Telesur. With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. A teacher in Argentina was kidnapped and tortured because she organized soup kitchens in the city of Moreno. Corina de Boris has been receiving death threats since last week because of her social work. On Wednesday afternoon, she was kidnapped by unknown assailants. A bag was placed over her head and the words "No Soup Kitchens" were carved on her stomach. She had previously protested for better conditions in public schools. The teachers' union is strongly condemning this attack.
At 5 p.m., as she was walking out of school, a car with 3 people inside kidnapped her colleague, Corina de Boris. 2 men attacked her on the sidewalk, hitting her various times and forcing her inside the car. They put a bag over her head and exposed her stomach. Using a sharp instrument, they carved the words "No Soup Kitchens" on her flesh. But even more serious than this, after torturing her, they warned her that the next time she worked in a soup kitchen, it would be at the local cemetery.
And Costa Rica is into its 4th day of a national strike. Demonstrations continue in the streets as citizens demand a public consultation on the new economic measures. On Wednesday, police broke into the National University, arresting and beating protesting students. Our correspondent, Fernando Francia, has more from San Jose.
The 4th day of the indefinite national strike has taken an unexpected twist. Police showed extreme brutality when they forcibly entered the University of Costa Rica, following students who had been protesting outside. The police followed protesters into the campus, completely bypassing university authorities. The dean of the university will meet the president later to try and find a solution to the issue. Trade unions and worker groups have condemned the excessive violence of police and continue to ask for an open dialogue with the government.
In Guatemala City, families are expected to gather to protest against the excessive force police used during Wednesday's protests. Indigenous communities took to the streets to protest the expulsion of the International Commission Against Impunity.
My message to President Morales is that time has come to step down. He needs to resign. The people don't want him in power anymore. He doesn't represent us. Enough repression, enough persecution, enough criminalizing of the people. We don't have any money. Our roads are breaking down. The schools are falling apart. The minimum wage is not enough to buy basic goods.
Jimmy Morales has become a puppet of the political class. Congress, the military, and those in the upper class are using him. He is in no position to govern.
We want a country that is for everyone. We don't want corrupt officials to be in charge anymore. They have stolen so much from us. Poverty and malnutrition rates skyrocket, while education rates drop. And yet, Jimmy Morales wants to remain in power. We demand he step down. We do not want him anymore.
Protests are planned in Ecuador's capital, Quito, against President Lenin Moreno. It's being organized by supporters of the former president, Rafael Correa.
Hello, yes, indeed, several sectors as fishing, workers and political and social organizations will march today against the latest economic measures implemented by the government and implemented by President Lenin Moreno. This demonstration will start outside Jail 4, where the ex-vice president of Ecuador, Jorge Glass, is now. Then people and supporters will go to Park Arbolito at 4 p.m. where they will gather, and they are calling to this demonstration to defend their rights and their needs. Also, former President Rafael Correa on his Twitter account have called to this demonstration to defend people's rights. So that is all we have for now. Back to you at the studio.
And Ecuador's Attorney General says the state is moving ahead with its bid to nullify the Hague Court's ruling in favor of Chevron. Again, Denise Herrera explains.
Attorney General Íñigo Salvador says the government will seek to have the ruling nullified by a court.
He dado ya la disposición a los abogados del Estado ecuatoriano.
I have asked the Ecuadorian lawyers to consider 2 actions, the possibility of requesting either an interpretation or an invalidation of the ruling. We have 90 days to make these requests. The interpretation should be resolved in 45 days. However, the nullification process in Dutch courts can take up to 4 years.
Tenemos, como he dicho, 90 días. La de interpretación deberá resolverse en 45 días.
Amazonian people affected by Chevron and their attorneys also attended the meeting. They are strongly rejecting the court ruling.
Si el Estado pretendiese aplicando
If the state intends to uphold this ruling, we feel we have no choice but to go to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. We will not allow the state to prevent us from exercising our rights.
En cualquier otra corte del planeta, no nos queda otra opción que recurrir ante el Sistema Interamericano de Derechos Humanos.
Several authorities criticized this intervention. They feel that the government is failing to defend indigenous communities. In light of this, some analysts say the government could very well seek to nullify the ruling.
Este convenio, dice en el artículo 5,
Article 5 of the Treaty of New York states that one can deny a verdict when it is not in the interest of the public order. Does the treaty signed with the United States not say the ruling can be challenged? Even the Ecuadorian law also allows for the invalidation of a court ruling if it violates the country's constitution.
Incluso la norma interna del Ecuador, la de su momento Código de Procedimiento Civil y luego Código Orgánico General de Procesos.
The indigenous people also have called on the State Attorney General and the President to defend national sovereignty, the independence of the judicial system, and to guarantee full validity of the Constitution in the international commercial matters. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Quito, Ecuador.
On October 1st, the International Court of Justice will rule on the Bolivia-Chile border dispute. Bolivia brought the case to the ICJ in 2013 in an attempt to gain sovereign access to the waters it lost after the 1879 Chilean invasion. President Evo Morales looks forward to a resolution. He believes it would be a new start for both Bolivia and Chile.
October 1st will be the start of a new history for Bolivia and Chile. We will forge new diplomatic relations. Accords will be fulfilled and we will begin to solve our pending issues. We are neighbors with Chile. We are brothers and those bonds last forever.
Time for the second break of this newscast. World News is after this.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur. The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is in China to discuss political and economic cooperation. The Chinese Foreign Ministry reported that Maduro was invited by President Xi Jinping. Both men will meet to hold a signing ceremony. Maduro will remain in China until Sunday. Ghanaians, along with world leaders, are paying their respects to the former UN Secretary General, Kofi Annan. Annan's son, Kojo Annan, called his father a global statesman par excellence, but also his personal hero. Annan led the United Nations from 1997 to 2006. His funeral will be followed by a private burial at the capital's military cemetery with a 17-gun salute.
Request that
the actor and activist Willie Toledo has been released from custody after a court violation for blasphemy charges in Spain. He's been accused of insulting God and the Virgin Mary. Toledo was meant to appear before a judge but refused to do so, raising questions about freedom of speech. He was then arrested. Time now to bring you some other stories from around the world.
A protest against sex education in schools was countered by pro-LGBT supporters in Cologne, Germany. Demo for All is an organisation that advocates for traditional family values. They held banners against gender ideology and the sexual education of diversity. However, their pleas were met by a larger demonstration promoting the rights of the LGBT community under the motto diversity instead of simple-mindedness. Both protests were peaceful. Pope Francis is to meet with Catholic Church leaders from the United States after being implicated in a cover-up of a sexual scandal. Last month, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano accused the Pope of knowing about the sexual misconduct of a former cardinal and doing nothing about it. The meeting was requested by the US Conference of Catholic Bishops who want to discuss the allegations. A hijabi bodybuilder in Indians Kerala is breaking stereotypes. Nothing stops Maziha Banu from competing in weightlifting competitions wearing her scarf. She's fully supported by her parents, who have every reason to feel proud of her. Banu has won several medals and now is training for the upcoming World Arm Wrestling Championship next month in Turkey.
I feel so special, I feel so preserved, and I'm really so comfortable in this hijab because my identity is my hijab and I don't want to change this identity for any reason. Maybe it is sports, my work, my duty, anything, whatever reason is it, we can use it anywhere. So I'm really proud to be a hijabi sportswoman, and I wanted to know the world that and hijabi can also do this, all kind of things. So.
And finally, in this newscast, Usain Bolt, the fastest man on earth, proved he's a force of nature by defying gravity in France. Bolt challenged two of his passengers to a race when he boarded a special Airbus Zero-G plane, which gives a zero-gravity experience. Despite their best efforts, Bolt won the race hands down. And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at talisurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Talisur English, I'm Sonia Gray. Thank you for watching.